Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
If you want to hear about who built Dubai and the many companies involved under the ICD framework, this guest leads one of those companies. They've been doing it for 20 years. They've been involved in mega projects such as Concourse A in DXB, many hotels, including One and Only, and they've been super involved in Expo 2020, and we'll hear so much around what went into that project. And then the One Zabil as well, which I found really interesting. We get to that later in the interview. So it's going to be kind of finishing next year, inshallah. So really good, interesting podcast. We'll jump straight into it. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Today we're joined by Kez Taylor, the CEO of ALEC, ALEC. ALEC is a company that's been setting new benchmarks in construction industry with innovative designs. ALEC has played a leading role in developing the Expo 2020 site, so quite topical at the moment, and we're going to delve into that. And also, by being the only construction company participating this year, you can find them on the ICD Pavilion, where they'll be unveiling their modular housing concept. Kez, thank you for joining us.
Okay, pleasure. Nice to be here.
Great. So, can you tell us a little bit more about ALEC, the history of the company and what it does?
Yeah, so we're a construction company. We've been operating here for 20 years. And we went from a startup business to $1 billion a year turnover business in a very short space of time, which took us 7 years to get to that point. So we were very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. And with that, what we experienced was really exponential growth to get up to $1 billion a year business in, double quick time.
How did that happen? That we naturally think of that trajectory for tech VC startups. How can a construction company go to basically a unicorn in 7 years?
Well, I think the first thing is, your core capacity and people has to be intact. So we were very fortunate. We had an amazing team of people. And if our core was strong, then what we did was we built around that core. But it is quite a difficult thing to do for any type of business, especially a construction business, because you need a lot of people. But I think our core was strong, and then around that core, we actually established values for the business way of operating, and then we built around that. But it was quite a scary trajectory to go through.
And what were the kind of business offerings in construction? Because it's quite a diverse industry. What did ALEC focus on?
Yeah, so we started off here at the Mina Al Salam, part of the Madinat Jumeirah project, and that was our first project that we got into. And so we did a lot of resort hotels in the beginning, and then eventually we played a major role at the Dubai airport. We've constructed about half of the Dubai airport facilities. We did Concourse A, which is dedicated for the A380s. I'm sure a lot of you have been through it, as well as Concourse D, which is for all the international airlines. So we played quite a big role at Dubai airport.
Okay, so this must be going. So when did you start? When did the business start?
Yeah, so we started in 2001, and that's when we really got going.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit more about construction business in terms of within the UAE? Do you do a lot of the kind of manufacturing? Do you have factories? Do you have joinery? How do you source the materials and things like that? How's it structured?
Yeah, so in construction, we use a lot of subcontractors as well to do the specialist trades. And then we do a lot of the work in-house as well. So traditionally what we look after is all the structural works, all the MEP works, a lot of that we do in-house. And then some of the specialist work around that, and then we'll subcontract as well.
Can you explain MEP?
Yeah. So that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So pretty much the heart and soul of a building.
Okay. So like any kind of service and company that's providing a piece of work for a client, do you tender for these big hotel and big construction projects, and then you allocate the resources and you have the team in place to deliver them?
Correct. Yeah. So traditionally, what would happen is there'll be a design, there'll be a tender, and then you got to price it. And one of the challenges with our industry is that pretty much the lowest guy often gets selected to go and do the work. It doesn't mean the lowest guy is necessarily the right person to go and execute the work. A big thing that we trying to educate the industry around is that you've got to go with the best solution and the stakeholders that can provide the best value.
Okay.
What we keep saying is, if you're going to send your kids to school, you don't send them to the cheapest school. If you're going to go to a doctor if you're sick, you don't go to the cheapest doctor. You're going to go to the right doctor.
Yeah.
And I think in construction as well, and that's very similar for designers and contractors and specialists, you should go with the parties that are really good at what they do, can add the most value, and then help that development to be a success.
Okay, interesting. So it's around it's your 20-year anniversary this year. How has your business changed in the last 20 years in terms of not just the size, but the types of services you provide and the requirements of your customers?
Yeah, so I think, I think construction has been going on for centuries, since the beginning of time. We've been designing and building buildings. So that's been in place for a long period of time. What we're trying to do is we're trying to innovate and perfect the process in delivery. A big challenge in the construction industry globally is that traditionally, using these traditional models, about 80% of these projects don't finish on time or within budget. So there's a lot of work that goes on around the world. I mean, around about $11 trillion worth of construction work. And by far the vast majority of these end up being not successful in terms of time and budget. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how do we assist teams that projects become very successful for everybody involved in it.
Okay, interesting. 80% is a big number.
Yeah.
Is that similar in the UAE? Are projects do they have that completion rate in terms of being on time as within budget?
Yeah, that's a global statistic.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not 100% sure what it is in this region, but I wouldn't think that it's actually too far off that.
Yeah.
So what we trying to focus on is collaborative models, and if we use a collaborative model where all the key players get together early on and they all work towards the overall success of the project, not their individual success, but the success of the project, then you've got an 80% chance of success.
Okay.
So it's the inverse of the traditional models.
Okay.
So we feel that collaborative contracting is a very easy win. It doesn't need much investment. It doesn't need much time. All what we got to do is we've got to educate people around a different model of delivering these complex big jobs more successfully than what they are at the moment.
Okay, so you do focus on the big jobs. Obviously, Concourse A and hotels are big jobs.
Yeah.
And how is the company structured in terms of, is it, that size revenue, would you be, are you listed on a stock market? Are you privately owned? And what are the sort of, what industry, what does it look like for the future for the business?
Yeah, so in terms of ownership, we're 90% owned by the Investment Corporation in Dubai. So they are majority shareholder, and for us, they're a fantastic partner to have. So ICD, they own in excess of 135 different types of businesses, and the likes of Emirates, Fly Dubai, Kerzner, One and Only, a lot of the banks. So they a very diversified group, but they're all kind of businesses that are interwoven into the fabric and the life of people living here in Dubai.
Yeah.
And we're very much part of that.
Okay, exactly. Interesting. And just in terms of, you explained some of the services earlier, but for me to understand a bit more, if you're taking on a project, who do you have on your team? Do you have quantity surveyors? Do you have different types of project managers? Do you have everyone on your books, or are you always looking at different partners as well?
Yeah, so internally we would have quantity surveyors who work for us, but the client would also have a quantity surveyor. So between our quantity surveyor and the client's quantity surveyor, they would work together to figure out how much you should get paid for doing the works that you've done.
Yeah.
So there's parties on both sides that are both called quantity surveyors. On our side, we'd have somebody who runs a project, and that person is a very key individual for us and actually for the project as a whole. So that person can pull a team together and basically set them in a direction. And you've got to be a very good leader to do those type of things. So we don't just look for technical skills. We look for people who have the right kind of leadership qualities that can pull off big, complex jobs with a lot of different stakeholders and individuals
Yeah.
that are often pulling in different directions.
Yeah, fascinating. So obviously, construction is everywhere in Dubai. It's such an interesting space. How, we'll talk about the expo as well, but how have you sort of personally, view the sort of last decade or so with projects in Dubai? What are the trends or what are the things that have excited you here?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the expo just now, but the expo as a development is a phenomenal development. I mean, we've been pretty fortunate. We've been involved in 22 of those projects. And if you
22 of the pavilions
Yeah, pavilions. So there's 195 countries that are going to be exhibiting there, of which some of them have their own individual pavilions, and then some of them are catered within existing buildings. But then also there's the main theme buildings that are around it, the sustainability, opportunity, and mobility. So we've been involved in some of the bigger ones as well as the Dubai Exhibition Centre as well, which is basically all the conferencing facilities. So we played a big role there. But as a development, if you look at the expo, I mean, from a master planning point of view, actually getting all these different countries to come in and get the whole development to integrate and work as a whole. I think, those are the kind of projects that we've been part of. And I think people, when they do go there at the beginning of next month, are going to be absolutely blown away by the expo.
It's amazing. And that's obviously, I think the project expo was won in 2012. So did you start at that point? Were you involved from then, or did the construction happen later, or how was the journey?
Yeah, the construction happened towards the latter end. So that's when we got involved in the last couple of years.
Okay, amazing. Amazing. So I was trying to comprehend the numbers and things like that. I haven't actually been down there for the recent announcements and the recent projects. Just trying to understand the kind of size of the development. I think I cycled by the Spinneys 92. We went through the village and I went through the exhibition centre. So are these sort of individual projects? Are these like you would treat a hotel development? And did you have separate teams on it, or are they all kind of working together at the expo?
Yeah, so I think you got the overall, let's call it the infrastructure, the development, which had to get put in place. So the roads, the network, and then within the development itself, plus, so you had to get your infrastructure in place. And then from a project point of view, you've got a lot of different people that are working on a common site in different areas all over the place. So logistically, things have to get handled, materials, people coming in, etc., on a daily basis. And the Expo have done a phenomenal job of handling logistics in the right kind of manner at the right point in time, because the logistic plan kept changing within the development. And then you've got all these multiple contractors all working simultaneously and together.
Yeah, amazing. Is that what you were saying earlier about collaborative? Is this an example of something collaborative, or is that in a different context?
I think it's in a different context, but I think, pretty much everyone has a role to play, but pretty much you're part of a bigger development which has to come together. So everyone has to play their part in pulling an overall development.
Is there Chaz, is there something comparable to this? Is there something that you've seen around the world? It feels like it's almost like building a city. Would an Olympic or a World Cup development be comparable, or no? Or is there anything comparable?
Look, I think with the World Cup, often what happens with the World Cup, it's in multiple cities. And often with a soccer World Cup or a rugby World Cup or anything like that, it's not centered in one definite place. I think the unique thing here is that this is a major global event that's going to take place in one location. Like you say, what we are building, we're building a city for the future.
Yeah. And, we will obviously be impressed, because we might be impressed about the connecting the minds, connecting the future themes, and the things that happen within the construction. But there must be global eyes from the construction industry of what's been built. Are you seeing a lot of sort of industry coverage and people impressed with what's coming, or have they seen it yet?
I honestly think people haven't really seen what's been done. And I think when the expo does open, there's going to be a lot of interest from a lot of different industries as to, the quality of what is being put together. some of the best architects in the world are working on that development. You know, from Norman Foster to Santiago Calatrava to Icaria to SOM, who designed the Burj Khalifa. So some of the best creatives in the world have come together to put this amazing development in place.
We always like having more time. Has the pandemic helped, or was it on time last year? And or were you able to kind of even make? I was listening to a podcast about a movie, and they said, well, we had more time, so we made it even better. Is the project even better now?
I think the master planning is still the master planning, and the scheme that would have been completed a year ago is going to be ready now for October. So I don't think anything's really changed. Maybe in some of the country pavilions, maybe they've had a little bit more time to develop the design. But if you look at the original concepts of the expo, and if it had have occurred in 2020 or 2021, I think it would have been. But it was brilliantly designed. Amazing,
interesting. And the role at ALEC will be there. So if we go to the ICD Pavilion, will you be showing off some of your work and some future ideas as well?
Yeah, so the ICD Pavilion is an interesting one. The decision was made pretty late that we were going to participate. And what we had to do was come up with something pretty unique and different. We didn't have an open-ended budget. We had to work within the constraints of what we had. So what we decided to go for was to create an outside area, very welcoming, and we decided to use bamboo as the main material.
Okay.
And the reason why we wanted to work with bamboo is that bamboo is very fast-growing, very strong, very flexible, and you can mold and shape it into what you really want to do. So we use bamboo as our main material for the structures, and then within this we're going to create a journey that people actually go through, and then it's going to exhibit some of the ICD companies, and then within that pavilion at the back we're going to be exhibiting the modular construction housing units that we got there.
Okay. Nice segue into that.
Yeah.
But that will be an always on sort of, so all the guests that arrive at the different point, when they get to the ICD Pavilion, they'll be able to experience that bamboo journey and be able to see that area.
Yes, yeah, it'll be open.
Yeah.
And people will be able to, and we've also, what we're going to have at the main entrance there is an audio-visual waterfall, which is then integrated into the bamboo. And then people will meander and walk through it. And so what we see the pavilion as being is very relaxed, very welcoming. It's not a rigid building with a door. It's an open pavilion that hopefully people are going to walk past and want to go a little bit further to find out what's behind and through the avenues of bamboo.
Amazing. I've heard that the audiovisual capabilities of the site in general are really groundbreaking, and there's lots of kind of amazing ability to have great and stunning displays and shows. So that'll be exciting. Okay, let's jump into the modular housing. So, one of the interesting things around construction is there's a lot of conversation around manufacturing and different types of housing, and there's different solutions in different types of the world. What's ALEC's view on this, and what is the modular housing offering that you have?
Yeah, so we were chatting about conventional construction, that pretty much the models we're using globally are not working as well as what they should. So as an industry, we got to figure out how do we actually improve things moving into the future. So modular construction for us is one of the things that are going to contribute towards improving delivery efficiency. And the other challenge that we're facing, especially in Europe and the UK, is that the younger generation don't want to necessarily be artisans. They all want to go to university, they all want to study something else. And there's very few kids that you'll encounter who want to be a bricklayer or a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. So those skills are dwindling. And in the UK at the moment, there is a massive need for affordable housing that's efficient and well constructed, and they can get delivered at speed. So there's a massive demand, and we're sitting with this dwindling industry that doesn't have enough people working within it.
Okay. I never knew that was one of the reasons why there's a shift to different types of housing. I never knew it was a lack of skills. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. But obviously, you know, like you were saying earlier, by having set, you know, forgive me for use of words, but by having kind of prefab or ability to get things out faster, you can control you can control the production times better. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so I think if you look at conventional developments in construction, we reinvent the wheel over and over again. Okay, so we'll do a design, we'll then build it, and then it'll get operated, and then we go and do the next one, and we start all over again. And it's a blank sheet of paper. What we want to do is we want to come up with a product, and that product must be very desirable, well designed, and something that people are actually going to want to live in. And I think hopefully what you'll see when you go to the ICD Pavilion, have a look at the linked modular units, hopefully what you'll see is that we've created a very desirable product. And our focus is mainly on the UK market.
Okay.
So we think we've come up with something. We've used really good interior designers. LW Designs have assisted us with the interior designs. And what we're looking at creating is something that is maybe better than conventional.
Why have you chosen the UK?
Well, because it's very expensive to build there, and there's a massive demand. And what we believe we can do by manufacturing here in Dubai, we can manufacture this product. We can then transport it on a cargo ship quite easily. So we're very close to the cargo ships, and then from there we can then transport it through to the UK. And then transport it, and it's volumetric modular. So basically, that entire unit will then get offloaded and placed on site. And also what it can be is it can be what we call stackable. So you can create a multi-story building using this system.
Fascinating. Wow. There's many things there, but I'm really impressed that you would manufacture in Dubai, because not everyone sees the UAE as a manufacturing space and manufacturing, developments here to be exported to a market like the UK. That's really interesting.
Yeah, but I think if you think about it, it does make sense. So our cost of production, will be a lot lower than what it would be in the UK. Okay, we've got to transport a little bit further, but that cost relative to the overall cost actually does make sense.
Okay.
And we are based here, and we do see Dubai in the future actually becoming more and more a manufacturing center.
Wow. Yeah, fascinating. I spoke to before on the show the CEO of Danube and Kef Holdings, and we discussed this topic because there are some kind of highly valued companies in the US in this space, and they're offering these type of modular housing, and it seems to be quite popular over there. And we were wondering why it hasn't really taken off here, and they both spoke about trying it in India first. Why do you think we don't have modular housing concepts prevalent in the UAE yet?
Look, so I think if you look at the market, we do have the skills here to construct. Our cost of construction is quite a lot lower than what it would be, let's say, comparable to the UK. And our cost of production is the main reason why we want to be here. And we are based here as a business. Yeah.
But do you think there'll be demands from developers, and, will we be seeing more modular housing on plots and different developments within Dubai and the UAE?
I think so, going into the future. So the first thing is the authorities have to come on board with the new system.
Yeah.
So that's the first bridge that we got to cross. We're currently working on doing that with partners. So in Singapore, as an example, a lot of the housing that goes on in Singapore is multi-story, and a lot of it is modular. So they've already made that transition into this method of construction.
In addition to being more efficient in terms of time and completion rates and budget, are there environmental benefits of modular housing?
Yeah, I mean, the waste is almost nothing.
Okay.
The materials that we're using can all be recycled and reused. The longevity of the product is another factor. And also the energy efficiency of the building compared to conventional construction. It'll be a lot better. So there are a lot of benefits. And then the other big advantage is speed. So in theory, what we can do is we can build a multi-story building as fast as we can manufacture the modular units.
Okay, wow. So can you just explain a little bit more about the difference in materials and how the modular buildings differ in terms of energy consumption?
Yeah, so we would, our makeup would be our frame is out of steel.
Okay.
And then basically the build-up of the partitioning walls would be using insulated materials with boarding, and that is very energy efficient.
Okay, makes sense. Basically, do you think that there'll be a lot more? Is this going to be a trend that really kind of takes over globally? Will the percentages increase in terms of modular housing? Will construction be? Are we at a turning point in how the construction industry and the manufacturing part of construction industry is at the moment?
I think we're in transition. At the moment, the big challenge here is that people need to make massive investment up front. So you basically got to put a big production facility in place, and that takes a big investment. Then what you got to figure out is how do you get a pipeline and secure enough work at that production facility can actually keep productive. But we believe in it. We've made the investment, and we believe that this is going to be a way of the future. So we've already.
You've done the upfront bit.
Yeah, we've already jumped in the ocean.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so it'll be fascinating to follow. Thanks for explaining it. I find it a little bit complicated. But can you just talk a little bit about materials in terms of the pandemic and the kind of last 12 months and 18 months in terms of supply, logistics, and what would your narrative be around what the world and what the UAE has gone through from a materials point of view?
Yeah, so I think where we've been very fortunate in the UAE is the construction industry never shut down. So that was a big plus for us. In countries where the construction industry shut down, those companies had a major problem that they had to deal with. So you can imagine if you've got 11,000 workers that you can't repatriate back home and they can't go to work and you're in the middle of a pandemic. So when we spoke to government, we asked them for two things. We said, please allow us to repatriate our workforce back to their home countries if need be, and please keep the construction industry open. We managed to do both of those.
Okay.
So we were pretty grateful about that. In terms of material supply, I would say our material suppliers in general have actually kept moving. We have had some challenges, but we managed to keep going.
Yeah, interesting. So on both of those points, so your projects went ahead. There were obviously, maybe some delays and some things to do with the pandemic, but in general, you had to repatriate some people, but in general, the construction didn't fully go to zero. You kept going.
Yeah, we kept going. I mean, obviously, we were constrained as to how we could work. Like, for instance, on a high-rise building, normally, let's say you could put 40 people in a hoist. We could now only put 20 in a hoist.
Okay.
So it would take double the amount of time to get the people up because you are constrained by the lifting equipment that you have on a project. So we've had to learn to work around those kind of constraints.
Yeah, so mainly social distancing constraints. And, interesting.
And working environment.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. And but wasn't there price as well as supply chain issues? Like we see a lot of the automotive industry is constrained a lot at the moment to do with a lack of microchips, and global companies like Applied Materials and others their share price is really, really high because there's so much demand for these things. Have you found the cost of some of your materials, or even I think timber and wood went up really high during the pandemic? Have you found more costs on some things?
Yeah, so I mean the interesting thing is to do with demand and supply of global commodities and materials. What's happened, which most people wouldn't have expected, is that prices have gone up, and that's to do with constrained supply, and there's still been demand. So like timber as an example, when people were at home, what they decided to do is a lot of people decided they were going to fix their homes up. So there was a massive demand for timber, and the price of timber went up. Aluminium has hit record highs yesterday because of supply and demand issues.
But is that on pre-committed projects? Do you have to recost those, or does your price go up? And how do you keep the same margins in times like that?
Yeah, that's the challenge, because you could say, this is an event that's actually out of your control. It's very difficult to actually allow for that.
Yeah.
But often we price what's called a lump sum.
Okay.
And you have to allow for escalation within your price. So it depends on what kind of type of a contract you've entered into. Okay,
great. Kez, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the region and plans for the future.
Okay, good.
Hey guys, I'm Casey Fitzgerald.
And I'm Simran Gupta from Love in Dubai, your go-to source for everything local news.
Be sure to watch the Love in Dubai show for the latest on what's going on in this city and beyond, with exclusive interviews every single morning.
We go live every day at 8:30 a.m. sharp and 9:30 a.m. on weekends.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. Find us at Love in Dubai.
And we're back. So, Kez, we were talking a lot about the size and all the projects that ALEC have done. But really, let's talk a little bit more about the expo. So we've seen nice announcements of these big gates opened up. So what happens after, the exhibition center and things like that? Are we, as Dubai residents, going to be going to this facility for the next sort of decade or so?
Yeah, so that exhibition center is going to be used in the future. It's a brilliant facility. You'll see what it's like when you go there. It's used very natural materials, a lot of natural light, and
Okay.
it's a fantastic facility. So a lot of exhibitions in the future are actually going to take place there. Plus, from a transport point of view, very easy to get there on the metro, and also to get there by car now with all the fantastic interchanges and road network that we got. I think there's going to be a big shift in that direction.
And the World Central Airport as well.
Yes.
So a shift in terms of, the World Trade Center is obviously a landmark in Dubai, but it's where the majority of events have taken place. Will that allow Dubai to have two options for sort of meetings and events and things like that? And
I think so,
exhibitions? Okay. So the exhibition center, will that be as active as the main sort of pavilions throughout the 6 months as well?
I think there's going to be activity all over the place. So I think it's going to be very vibrant.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of activities, a lot of interest.
Okay. And normally when ALEC, when your company finishes projects, do you kind of stand back and marvel it and attend it like hotels like everyone else? And are you finished with your construction work on the expo apart from the pavilion and the display that you're doing?
Yeah, we still, in the final polishing up phase. Everyone's just getting everything ready for the event.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the work has been completed, and things are looking really good. I think when we finish projects, you go through a lot of pain in getting these projects across the line.
Yeah.
So what you tend to do, it's more about relief, I'd say.
Yeah.
You're just thankful that you delivered it.
Okay, so but you'll be hands off apart from the pavilion, the area where you'll be on display. You won't have people maintenance, or you won't have people working on it for the 6 months.
We do have maintenance teams, so we understand basically how the whole systems come together. So we will be assisting on certain of the pavilions throughout the 6-month period. So we are going to have those teams there.
Okay, and so do you think there'll be another project of that size within Dubai, and would you like to be involved in something like that again?
Yeah, I think that's our sweet spot. We like complex, difficult jobs that are very challenging.
Yeah.
So we try to seek out those kind of projects.
Okay, my brother is a quantity surveyor he was in Hong Kong, and he did projects in airports, and then he was in New York, and he's just built. He'll kill me for getting the name wrong, but it's like a modular housing in a unit in Berkeley. He's built it himself.
Yeah.
What for people like that? How would I attract him, or how would people like that be interested in working in the UAE for companies like ALEC? How do you attract talent?
Look, I think this region attracts people on its own. So the kind of projects that we work on are exciting, challenging. Okay. So people who want great experience, and that they will come here. It's a country full of opportunity as well.
Yeah.
So people are attracted to places where there's opportunity to grow, develop. And then what we do within our business is we put a massive emphasis on our people, and we train and develop our people and challenge them on our projects.
Interesting. Okay, I'll tell him that.
You can give him my number.
I will, definitely. So in terms of two kind of questions, one in terms of massive projects like metros and expos and things like that, how important is the legacy of that venue to a company like ALEC? Are you looking at sort of obviously the sustainability part, but do you have a vested interest in, we often hear of cities who go into debt to host Olympics and things like that. Do you have a vested interest, and does it come back to the original point of running the project within budget? But in addition to a pride point of view, do you have a vested interest in that the project does have a legacy and is used after this sort of initial phase?
Yeah, I think we're all part of that process. And we can't just think about the construction phase. We've really got to look at developments and projects that we look at them from, that they actually do work, that they are feasible, that they are efficient in the way that they're managed and run, and that they are attractions for a very long period of time.
Yeah. And this is obviously Dubai is, almost like a startup city. It's so innovative. It's so many new projects. But in that sense, the economy growth and that sort of vision to diversify away from oil and services, personally, how do you think something like the Expo site will contribute to the economy and the growth of the GDP for the future in the UAE?
Look, I think the greatest thing is we are going to attract people from all over the world. And the great thing is, connecting minds, creating the future. So just the fact that everyone is going to come here into one place, and there are some real topics that we need to tackle as humanity and people that live on this planet. And there's a lot of things that we're getting very wrong at the moment that need urgent action. So I think that call to action, having an event where people can collectively come together to debate, figure out how do we fix these issues and create a better future for everyone, is what's going to contribute to this region, and I think the rest of the world as well.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a very exciting time. We're on the eve of it, and I can't wait to check it out, and more interest now that you have a presence there. Just talking in general of the wider region, many people call the Middle East an emerging market. What's your view of that? And maybe in context of ICD, in terms of, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed often talks about being a leader for the Arab youth and across the region. And we often see big companies that grow out of Dubai take on projects in countries like Egypt and in Saudi Arabia. Is that something that ALEC looks at as well?
Definitely. I think we're very fortunate here that we have great leadership within the UAE and forward-looking, innovative leadership that actually want to be number one. So when you're part of a country like that, then when you get onto that journey with everyone else, you're on an upward trajectory. So I think the example is set, and the kind of stuff that we're doing here collectively is amazing. And I think everyone is on that journey.
Are you involved in other projects? Are you involved in any of the giga projects in Saudi Arabia or in New Cairo or things like that? Or do you look at those as opportunities?
Yeah, so we've set up a business in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of work that's going to be coming out there. We also built the Saudi pavilion at the Expo.
That looks amazing.
Yeah. And we worked with Aramco on that project. We had a great working experience working together with them.
Yeah.
And we've just been awarded our first project in Riyadh.
Okay.
So we're looking at expanding, into Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
We're also working in Ethiopia as well.
Okay, interesting. Okay, brilliant. And so sort of are there any sort of exciting projects that you're kind of near completion outside of the Expo in Dubai that we'll see sort of finishing in the next sort of 12 months or so? Yeah,
so one of the great projects we're working on is One Zabil at the World Trade Center roundabout. It's a phenomenal building. It's 580,000 square meters. So it's a massive building in its own right. And I'm sure you've seen it there with the massive link, which is going to be, the longest cantilever structure in the world. And that link is going to be phenomenal.
Okay, so can you explain that? Is that kind of that? I'm not familiar with it. Is that near where the Museum of the Future is and the complex around there?
It's a little bit further down.
Okay.
So at the World Trade Center roundabout, you'll see it. So there's two very high-rise buildings straddling over a 4-lane highway in between. And what we had to do was basically incrementally launch the link across that road, get it in position, and then we had to hoist up with strain jacking 9,500 tons of structural steel to get it into position.
Mind-boggling numbers. Amazing. So, okay, and we can check that out on ALEC website or on the One Zabil website. We can see more about that project.
Yeah.
And when's it due to be complete, or what stage are you at?
Yeah, so that project, I mean, the target there is to finish by the end of 2022.
Okay.
And it's going to be handed over in phases.
Okay, interesting. And is it sort of commercial, residential, and how will we access it?
So the one tower is residential. The other tower is a combination of offices. It's also going to be a one and only with a new brand that they're going to be bringing in as well.
Wow.
As well as the executive offices.
The city never stops. Kez, thank you so much for your time this morning. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to see what projects ALEC continue to roll out.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Wow, what an interesting conversation with Kez. I knew a lot must have gone into these big developments, but I didn't really know it from the point of view of running that type of company. And there's so many things happening in construction, so many different challenges and different trends. So it's really cool to know about it. And yeah, hope you guys got something out of that as well. Subscribe to the While It Works podcast wherever you get your audio, get your podcasts. And if you're interested, you can check us out on social media at SmashyTV or SmashyTV_EN. On Instagram, we actually have loads of different verticals. So we've got Smashy Crypto, Smashy Gaming, Smashy Sports, Smashy Green. So whatever your interest is, just type in Smashy and play around there on the different handles and find the Instagram channel that you're interested in, and send us some stories of what you want us to cover as well. Next week on the show, we're going to have the CEO of Petra Insurance, Ramzi Gourani, and he's going to be telling us about the insurance industry in Dubai and how they run their business. So tune in 11 a.m. UAE time next Thursday.